Story 1. For some reason, I thought the good, the bad, and the ugly was going to be a brief 90 minutes movie when I clicked play. Well, 90 minutes into that movie, I accidentally bumped the mouse and saw that there were still 90 more minutes to go. I loved it, though. Story 2. The original 1954 film, Seven Samurai, by Kurosawa was loved by many. Not many of these reactions are positive. When I realized there was still an hour left, I was thrilled. They spent the first big chunk of the movie recruiting Ronin and preparing the village for a big climactic showdown, which ended up taking days. I remember thinking, holy cow, they really are checking off each of the bad guys they killed that night, one by one. This will take forever. Awesome. Story 3. The Lord of the Rings. The Return of the King. But in a good way, after the battle outside the city, you think the film is going to wrap up soon, but no, there is more to come. Absolutely. Story 4. The Da Vinci Code felt like it was never going to end, which is ironic because the book is quite a quick read. Now, someone said, don't make fun of renowned author Dan Brown. Story 5. The live-action Lion King. One of the first times I was ever checking my phone to see how much time was left. They dragged the pacing out so badly, and the visuals were boring as anything. Story 6. I went to see the last Jurassic Park movie with my boyfriend. I wasn't really interested in seeing it but agreed to go with him. The theater had these large, comfy recliners to sit in, so I was very cozy. The movie started, and I promptly fell asleep. I woke up an hour later, checked the time, and thought, oh no, there is still another hour to go. I spent the next hour wishing I could go back to sleep. Story 7. Artificial Intelligence. It is 146 minutes long. Saw it with a bunch of friends at the cinema and we, along with the rest of the viewers, got up to leave at what we all thought was the end. Turns out we were only halfway done. Story 8. Dune. Part 2 is engaging in a positive manner. I continually anticipated it would conclude at various climactic moments and reserve the subsequent significant event for the following part. However, it just persisted. Story 9. I apologize if this has already been discussed, but has anyone else seen the movie Australia? I watched it upon its release solely because of Hugh Jackman. He was one of my first celebrity crushes, particularly in his role as Wolverine. However, I was taken aback by the film's structure. I believed the movie was concluding 2 to 3 times, only for them to continue introducing new elements. Story 10. Vanilla Sky. It was my friend's turn to pick the movie. The only thing that kept me awake was her asking me every 5 minutes what something meant. I finally lost patience and said, it means you never get to pick the movie again. A close second is Hamlet 2. Story 11. Bad Boys 2. They launch a big operation they've been building up all film to take down the drug lord and snatch his drugs, and the main characters are laughing and celebrating. I couldn't believe there was like 45 minutes left with a whole Cuban invasion thing yet to happen. Story 12. Land of the Lost, the awful 2009 Will Ferrell one. I worked at the cinema at the time and saw it because I had time to kill before a shift. Probably has a lot to do with why I am really not a Will Ferrell fan. Jupiter Ascending. I remember leaning over to my friend and whispering, is it just me, or is this bad? The only reason I stayed is because I figured with Sean Bean playing a half-man, half-bee, that they must kill him in a very inventive way. I couldn't believe he survived to the bloody end. Story 13. Hobbs and Shaw. We have that massive chase through all the industry and grayness. I felt, yep, that's enough movie for me. But holy moly, no, we now have the build-up for another action sequence, but now on a Pacific island, it felt tacked on at The Rock's insistence. Story 14. Negative. Avatar, I kept thinking it was going to end, but it just kept going on and on. Positive. Django Unchained had what felt like a few natural endpoints, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Story 15. Alpha Dog. I remember there was a pause in the film, like the screen stayed black for a second too long, and a bunch of people around us got up because we thought it was finally over. Nope, still had about 45 minutes to go. Story 16. Uncut Gems. Not because it was bad, quite the opposite actually. I was really enjoying it, but it was extremely tense. I paused it to go to the bathroom and realized I was around halfway through. I was shocked since it felt like the tension was building to the climax of the movie, but it got much more intense after that. Story 17, Titanic, but it was at the point where there were still 15 hours left, and my eyes were starting to bleed. If my girlfriend at the time hadn't forced me to watch it, I would have never committed to watching a 17-hour movie about characters I have zero interest in. Story 18, Oppenheimer. But it was more like, holy expletive, there's 2 hours left? Holy expletive, there's 90 minutes left? Holy expletive, there's an hour left. Holy expletive, there's half an hour left? Holy expletive, there's 20 minutes left? Story 19, The Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. I knew the ring getting destroyed wasn't the end, but they did such a good job of making it seem like the end that about 20 people walked out at that point. Story 20, The Aviator. It wasn't really that bad. It was just kind of dragging. The main reason I wanted to see it was Blanchett as Hepburn, who is one of my favorite actresses. Story 21. There was a real terrible movie on Netflix about 4 years ago. The Last Days of American Crime. Michael Pitt and Sharlto Copley were in it, so I thought it would be decent. I love both those actors. My goodness, that movie was a complete slog. Felt like it took forever to wrap up. Story 22. I was in the cinema, so I couldn't see how long was left, but I thought Dune 2 was going to end about 5 times before it did. It was an unbelievable movie, so I wasn't complaining about the extra scenes. Story 23. It wasn't bad. I absolutely love this movie, but School for Good and Evil was long. We get to Sophie embracing she's evil, and there's still another hour left. It was ridiculous. Story 24. No Escape, starring Owen Wilson, was not boring at all. My holy smokes, there's still an hour left, came from how terrifying the movie was. Having lived in a turbulent country for many years and being a father, this movie hit way too close to home. Story 25. The first era is about a man in charge of making the most fearsome weapon in human history. The second era is about whether he could recover his security tag. Story 26. The Perfection. It was a plot twist after plot twist, and the ending will leave you flabbergasted but satisfied. Absolutely wild. It has such a slow start that you don't ever expect it to turn out the way it does. Story 27. I'm afraid of getting yelled at on the internet, but regarding the movie Dune featuring Timothée Chalamet, in my defense, I was very sleepy, and I'm not into science fiction at all. It was early enough in my relationship that I was still trying really hard to impress my partner. I just remember there was so much walking through the sand and thinking, this is where the credits are going to roll. No, this is where the credits are going to roll. Maybe here, then? Hey, wait, have we seen Javier Bardem yet? It was a beautiful movie, but overwhelming. Story 28. The Transformers movie that introduced the dinosaurs. That movie was so long and boring that I'm pretty sure I audibly said, they still haven't been introduced, the dinosaurs. Story 29. Jean Dielman by Chantal Akerman. Supposedly the best movie ever, which I get to a certain extent, but God, fighting through the movie is an accomplishment itself. Story 30. It's old, but How to Make an American Quilt. And Dances with Wolves. I like that one, but it could have been just as good if it was shorter. In case you can't guess, I don't often go to the movies now. Oh, and Rambo 2 just to complete the olden days riff. Edited to add, came back to say Titanic. It was another good one. I liked it, but I've never felt the need to rewatch it, and again, it would have been just as good if shorter. I think the best length, story-wise, fell into a no man's land of too long for one DVD and too short for two, so they fluffed the movie up to get that extra length, anticipating DVD release. I acknowledge the pun, but it wasn't deliberate. If you know, I couldn't resist leaving it in. Story 31. The most recent All Quiet on the Western Front. When I got to what really appeared to be the climax, I paused the movie to go to the bathroom and said, holy heck, I still have over an hour left. It's a good movie that I did enjoy, though. Story 32. Probably unpopular opinion. Most if not all movies that are made now are too long for comfort. I suggest 3 reasons. 1. Studios and others think it's more artsy or intellectual. so they're more likely to get Oscars and other awards, as well as bigger box office. 2. Everybody else is doing it, so we also have to. Otherwise, punters won't think they get as good value from us. 3. The paying public think long movies are more value. If we're driving there and paying all that money plus popcorn, etc., I want more than 90 minutes, damn it. Then they're bored, but they don't feel ripped off. They've paid, so studios don't really care that moviegoers weren't captivated in that extra hour, and it doesn't deter others. Be honest, for the big movies, even if six mates say, yeah, it's good, but it's way too long, it got tedious, you'd still go because you don't want to be the only one who hasn't seen it on the big screen. If the trend continues, as it seems it will, in my opinion, they need to script a natural break or cliffhanger in the middle and go back to having intermissions. The theaters would sell more snacks and drinks. As for the extra-length movies being purchased or hired for device viewing, I don't know, maybe also have that break, but let's hope they resist the temptation to charge separately for each half. Story 33. Is the implication that I have seen the movie before? How would I know how much time is left? Do most people check the runtime beforehand? I don't think I've ever done that before. Personally, I consider not knowing the length of a movie similar to not wanting to know what's going to happen in the actual movie. Story 34. I had an early morning final last January, probably the hardest exam of my life. That night, my boyfriend wanted to take me to the movies. He picked Killers of the Flower Moon. Fantastic movie, but man, was I exhausted. Story 35. Transformers 4, the one with Grimlock, was so painfully boring. It didn't help that I was watching it in another city at about 3 a.m. It was some sort of special premiere. Story 36. I'm gonna catch flack for this, but regarding the 2021 film Dune, I've seen that movie 3 times now, and every single time I get to the exact same point in the movie where I think, okay, this feels like a natural resting point with the pacing. It's probably gonna wrap up, so oh no, we're getting into another entirely new situation and plot point, I guess we're gonna keep going. There are like 3 different places where I keep expecting the movie to end, and the actual ending of that movie is not one of them. Just oi. Story 37. Django Unchained. I watched it, not legally, the day it came out. I thought the movie would be close to over after the Candyland stuff. Moved my mouse and saw the timeline and was like, huh, I know this thread is more about bad movies, but that one was a nice, oh, there's more. Story 38. The Unbearable Lightness of Being. Spoiler alert. We learn in a different scene that the main couple dies in a car crash. Still, the scene is so long, and so little happens that it feels like watching paint dry. I watched it in school and had another student stand up in the auditorium and say, just drive off the road already. Story 39. I didn't know there was an hour left, but I remember seeing Watchmen in theaters and thinking the ending credits were about to start. Then it just kept going for a long time after that. I just looked, and it's 2 hours and 43 minutes, and now there's even an extended version. Story 40. Fast X just kept going for some reason. A friend I saw the movie with asked after the Rome chase if the movie was done already. That was like 20 minutes into the movie, laughing my off.